And I just turned around and I hauled ass out of there. I was done. I wasn't dealing with that.
The hypocrisy of the cult is one of the things that turned me away the quickest.
When I turned my headlights on, it turned and looked at us. And one of the things I remember the most were the eyes were glowing red.
I see an orb of light. It is just circling these steps like it is waiting for me.
And he begins to tell them that he saw a UFO. They're basically like, what are you talking about? That's 7 foot up on a tree, peeking around it. And that's where I saw the top of the muzzle, nose, and the eyes. As soon as I made eye contact with this thing, it felt like death.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tinfoil Tales After Dark. I'm your host, Brandon. I want to thank everyone for coming on here tonight, hanging out with me. We have a special guest co-host tonight. You guys might know him as Erick from Uncomfortable. Erick was kind enough to come on here, be my co-host. We're going to bring him on now.
Hey, Brandon.
How you doing? How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Glad to be here, man. This is kind of fun, exciting.
This is the second time I've done a live stream for this show. The other podcasts, we did a couple of them, but not for Tinfoil Tales. The one time I did was kind of spur of the moment, but it was kind of fun. So I thought maybe make it a monthly thing.
Yeah.
See what happens
Awesome.
with it.
And I'm looking at the comments. The uncomfortable community has shown up.
Yeah.
Hey, guys.
Appreciate you guys coming on here, checking it out. It says Facebook is not working, so I don't know what's going on with that, but I got a message that says it's not streaming on Facebook. So it should just strictly be YouTube. But we do have a guest. Ryan Paul Tremblay will be coming on here to share some of his experiences with everybody. And anyone out there listening, if you guys have questions or whatever, just make sure to ask and we'll try and get those answered for you. And if you do have something you'd like to share, you can send me a message on there and I'll be able to pop you on the screen and you can share it on there if you want to do that too. But we're going to go ahead and bring Ryan on and get this thing started. Hey, Ryan.
Hey, what's up, guys?
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How you guys doing tonight?
Good.
I'm doing well. Ryan,
all right.
Like I said before we started the show, I don't comment much on Instagram or anywhere, to be honest with you. But
right.
your Instagram posts, man, they grab me all the time. You're in my head as far as the topics that I'm into, the movies that I love, and it's just it's kind of like
all right.
a kindred spirit, I guess, maybe.
Oh yeah. Well, I promise not to play around in your head. I won't do any scrambling in there. So.
Oh, dude, you don't want to be there. I promise.
Well, I'm glad you get a kick out of those, man.
Yeah, it's great. I share them with my son all the time. I think he even started following you too, because he's a huge Godzilla fan and John Carpenter fan. And
all right, my type of people. Okay.
Yep,
okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm
Sweet.
surrounded by Godzillas here. I was showing Ryan, I've got the little keychains from the new Godzilla Kong movie.
Yeah, I got Godzilla right here too.
I've got him up on the wall.
All I've got are Bigfoot, big feet.
Got to show the support for the big G.
Oh, absolutely. If you're not doing it, you're not living right.
Speaking of Bigfoot, I don't know if anyone can see it.
There you go. I like that shirt, dude.
Wow. That's cool.
And then the stickers came in today as well.
Ooh.
So
I want a sticker.
they turned out pretty good. I was a little nervous because I wasn't sure how to turn out the shirts. This shirt is a little crooked, so I'm not real happy with the fact that it's crooked, but get it straightened out. So, well, Ryan, when we talked before, you'd mentioned something about Wendigos and you had a dog man experience and all sorts of stuff. So whatever you want to dive into, it's up to you,
Well,
buddy.
you want me to start off with my dogman encounter?
Sure.
Okay, well, I've told the story many times, but I always enjoy telling it again. I was actually house sitting for a friend. He and his wife had gone on vacation for a while, so I was being that good guy. And I would go and, check on his property, make sure everything was okay. And I would do morning, afternoon, and the last time I would check is at midnight, late at night. And what happened is I went one particular night, and as I'm walking up his driveway, I can hear all the coyotes around me. I mean, they're loud as can be, but they sound really anxious. They're nervous, so I'm just thinking that there's maybe, something out there like other dogs or other coyotes that's making him a little nervous. Didn't really pay much mind to it. So as I'm walking on the side of the house, I kind of noticed this odor. And it's a really, really, really bad odor. It made my stomach churn. It smelled like feces, body sweat, urine, anything bad that you could put together. It just smelled like that, So I thought maybe there was a dead body down in the riverbed, which wasn't too far from my friend's house. So I'm walking through this dark path that he has that leads to the back. I hear something moving, So I thought maybe there was somebody trying to play a prank or there was a homeless guy around there. And only being 5'10", I have to take on the defensive. So I kind of puff up like a puffer fish. I'm like, hey, and the noises stop. So, I just keep going my way. I hear the noises again, but this time it's kind of like a subtle growl, it's a soft growl. And when I heard it, I thought maybe, bear, mountain lion, something along those lines. So again, I'm posturing up. I'm trying to become big and bad and trying to scare whatever it is away. And I yell out into the night again, hey. And a few seconds pass. It's silent for a few moments. And then all of a sudden I hear a very loud and very close growl. And this growl was so strong, I could feel it reverberating in my chest. Like my bones were actually rattling from this, so I'm going, oh my God, there's something here. I didn't know what it was. And so I make my way to the very backyard. Okay. And I notice something moving in silhouette. I can see the shadow. How when you look at a shadow, you can see shadows moving in shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what I saw. So I thought, maybe it was just a stray animal or something. So again, I didn't really react properly, but as I got back there, the security lights kick on. And the first thing I notice is these lights are reflecting from this thing's eyes. So I see these big eyes looking back at me and they're shining super, super bright in this like amberish, goldish yellow color. And what I see looking at me is this hyena like thing, and it's staring right at me and I'm looking right at it. So I'm going, what is this? What am I looking at? And it growls again. It makes this really loud growl again. So I freeze. That's it. I'm not moving at this point. I'm like, oh, I don't know what this is. I don't know why it's here. So I'm going to stop and not do anything. And, it keeps staring at me, but I see its ears going up and down and its head is tilting side to side like a dog does when it's curious, so I'm not even sure what to do at this point. I'm like, do I run? Do I try to grab something? But there was really nothing to grab. So, I'm just kind of standing there like an idiot. And this thing charges forward about 3 feet and it stops on a dime. And once it stops, it stands up on 2 legs. I can hear the loud pop. So I'm looking at a bipedal hyena in my friend's backyard. And I don't know what to make of this. I'm going, my mind's thinking, what is it? Is it here to hurt me? Is it here to kill me? What's going on? So we just kind of stare at each other for a moment or two. And then it slowly starts to back away. It starts lumbering. And when I see it turn its back, that's when I got rockets in my butt. Like I warp speed. I made it up my friend's stairs. I'm in his house. I'm locking his doors. I'm bolting his windows. I'm going through his drawers to try to find a knife or something to use in case this thing comes back. I even called him up on the phone. And I'm like, hey, yo, man, there's something you didn't tell me. There was a hyena in your backyard. And, he's sitting on the phone. He's going, a hyena in Arizona? No, Ryan, there's no hyenas in Arizona. So the following morning, he comes home and I show him where I saw this thing standing. And sure enough, where it was standing, you could see the claw marks from where its feet was stuck in the ground. So that was my dogman encounter.
Did you see like how big it kind of could have been compared to something else?
Yeah, judging from the tree that was underneath, it's about 6.5 feet tall. It's a lot bigger than I am. 5'10", 6.5 feet tall is a lot bigger than you.
Can I jump in here? Yeah, go ahead. First of all, I don't know if that's something on your control or not, but I tried to join the chat and it keeps erroring out, won't let me. So I got people saying hi to me in the comments. Hello, all my uncomfortable friends. I wish I could address you, but I can't. But Ryan, you mentioned you heard a pop.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I assume that was when it was going into an upright position.
Yes.
Is that like you're hearing like bones popping? Like, was it like knuckle cracks, or was it like the crunch that you hear if you ever played football or got a broken bone or you broke somebody's nose or something? There's a very distinctive crunch to when a human bone.
It was more like a
crack or
knuckle
breaks.
crack. It was definitely more like a knuckle crack. I would say it's maybe a joint popping into place or popping out of place. I mean, I even theorized maybe it's their feet adjusting to the weight. You know, maybe as it goes from the quadruped position to the bipedal position, its feet, you know, have to gain more of the balance, and that's why they pop out.
What was the face like?
Very hyena-like. When you think of the hyena, the short snout and the, you know, the very square face and the rounded ears, it was very, very hyena-like in appearance.
Was there anything even remotely humanoid about the way the face looked?
No. But what was humanoid about it was the arms. But the arms were very long, like it hung down past its knees. But, you know, that's the only humanoid part of it, really.
Interesting.
So, you know, seeing something like that, you don't know what to make of it, you know, so I didn't move. And I know better that when something's predatory, don't look it in the eyes and don't run, because you're going to trigger the predator-prey response.
I just check for the comments. It doesn't show anything why you can't comment, so I don't know what's going on with that. No, the only thing I see on mine is got, like, for the Tinfoil Tales Facebook page, it shows a exclamation point, says it's not streaming.
Oh boy.
I don't know what's going on with that, but clearly it's working on YouTube, and I think it's working on my normal Facebook, which I don't know why it's on my normal Facebook page. I wanted to stream from the Tinfoil Tales page. Oh well. But no, as far you're the second person that I've talked to that had a description of a hyena when it comes to a dog man. And the one person I'd talked to, we didn't do an interview, but I talked to him like online or whatever. What color were the eyes? Could you tell?
From what I saw from the eye shine, they were like a golden yellow color, but I think maybe when the lights weren't on them, they were darker brown.
So they said the same thing. They said that the color was like almost like an amber. Like
I mean,
amber color.
When the light hit the eyes, man, they were just shining bright. They were like, boom, sending out. And I was like, wow.
No. I'm not.
I got it working now.
Okay. Yeah. Basically, with when it comes to dogman type stuff, I'm always interested just because it's kind of my bread and butter for my own personal reasons.
And it's so unusual too. A bipedal canine makes no sense biologically.
No, there's a lot of things out there that I can understand, like obviously a Sasquatch, this and that, but a canine should not be able to walk like a human. There's no precedence for that. No. I've seen dogs hop around on their back legs and walk around on their back legs, but they don't look like a person. You can totally tell they're not meant to walk on their back legs.
Right. I mean, it's damaging to normal canines to walk on their back legs. So it kind of makes you wonder how these things get up on their back legs.
Yeah, that's from what I've heard and what I've seen and everything else, it is very natural looking for them to do that. And it's not something natural that should be in existence just because of biology or whatever from evolution. There's no line of a canine ever walking on two legs that I'm aware of.
Right. But the way that it moves so quickly, though, I mean, it covered a lot of ground on two legs, man. So, you know, it's like they're adapted to doing it.
So when it went into an upright position, did the spine become, or did it continue to maintain its forward posture?
He was kind of curved, like he was kind of stooped down. He was holding onto a tree branch. He was kind of like stooped down, you know, like he wasn't sure if I entirely saw him or not, or if he was maybe getting ready to run.
Yeah. Brandon, didn't you see something very similar in the thing that you saw on the road? Isn't that the
Yeah.
way it presented itself as well?
Yeah. When it stood up like it did like a stumble, but when it stood up, it stands straight up, and then its front legs are off like a human's would be. Like a dog would be like this. This thing had it dropped straight down like a person's like would.
Yep.
And it had more of a hunched overness to itself. Like it wasn't completely upright when it walked, but it had more of a bit of a lean to itself.
Right.
So, but then when it hunkered down and walked off, it got almost like back on all fours.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never seen a dog stand up like that. Mine, what I saw, literally looked like a dog, but I'm 6'3" and this thing was eye to eye with me. So there's no
Wow.
way it was a dog that I'm aware of.
No.
So
Can we go back to the musculature of the arms?
Yeah. I mean, muscle wise, it was more like a basketball player. I know a lot of people see those really buff ones, but if I had to make an analogy at all, it was more like, a basketball player. It was very lithe and very lean, but you could see where there were muscles though.
Well, like the hair on it, was it patchy? I mean, could you see skin through it? Was it?
No, there was no skin that I could see. It was all just covered in fur, but it did seem to be kind of blotchy in a way. Like it had different colors in it, different shades, like a golden brown with like, darker browns. And you could see the little rosettes too along this area here and along the neck. So it had the spots like
it literally looked like a hyena.
Yeah, I mean, that is the best way I can describe that, is hyena, like bipedal hyena is the best way I could ever describe that.
Which could be explained a number of different ways. I mean, something could have, exotic animal collector could have got loose, but I mean, none of that explains the behavior of it.
Right.
Standing up on its hind legs and.
Right. And it did seem intelligent too. I mean, like, it seemed to keep a distance after it did the bluff charge, kind of like it was, gauging what I was going to do. It wanted to see what my response was going to be.
did you feel like it was actually like threatening? Were you
No.
afraid of it or anything like that? So
No.
That's the one thing that I've come to find out. Like, I get asked that a lot when people talk to me about what happened with me. They claim like dogmen feed on fear. I don't know who made up that assumption or whatever, where that analogy came from.
Well, I mean, I think that makes for a good horror story when they say they feed off the fear, and that kind of gives them a more supernatural element.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, no, I didn't really feel threatened. I mean, I was scared, because I didn't know what I was looking at, but I didn't feel like it was going to just spring on me and kill me. So,
For someone else that I've talked to, they said similar things too. Is like they didn't feel like this thing was going to attack them. Because even with me, like if I was 15 feet from it, if it wanted to grab me or jump at me.
yeah, see, that's the distance I was too, Brandon, is 15 feet, and 15 feet, it could have closed the gap real quick if it really wanted to.
Yeah. That's why I don't want to come out and say what I saw with the dog man, because partially I'm skeptical about things like this. So it's like, this thing shouldn't exist. So I've tried to write it off as it's just a dog. But again, I don't know of any type of dog that can do something like that. Same
Yeah,
thing
me
like
neither.
a hyena. I'm not a hyena expert, but I don't think hyenas can walk on their hind legs.
Well, no, I've never heard of them doing so, so
Yeah.
it's a very strange thing to have seen, it's not something you forget too easily.
Now, where did you say this was? It was in Arizona, but like, was it in the more of the desert area, or was it kind of close to
Yeah,
the
it's
city?
southern Arizona. So we were smack dab. The town that I saw it in is actually a small mining town, and we were surrounded by nothing but desert. So
I know there's a small mining town that they always said was haunted out there, Jerome or whatever it was called.
oh yeah, I've been there a couple of times.
I went there once.
Mhm.
The restaurant was supposed to be like the haunted place there, and I went in there just to eat, see if anything happened, and I just got food that wasn't that good.
What a disappointment.
No. But,
My problem with these type of creatures is, so, Bigfoot to me makes complete and total sense.
Yeah.
Whether it's a part of our genetic lineage going back, whether it's an offshoot of something similar but not quite us, all of it makes sense. It looks like it looks like a human. It looks,
Right.
but these things, you know, like Dogman, and to me, that always just, it always just screams something supernatural. That, you know, we had Russians, and I think even Germany was working on trying to find a way to cross humans over with primates to create super soldiers, you know. You know, and that makes sense. I mean, they literally were actually doing tests where there were women who were, I don't know that they were lined up, but there were women that were engaging in some sort of in vitro fertilization or actual copulation. I don't know, with gorillas, to try to achieve that. And there's, you know, it's been rumored that there was some level of success.
Yeah, the werewolves in Germany,
before
right?
they pulled the plug on it. But you know,
yeah, the Nazi werewolves. Yep.
You know, there's no, you know, human and dog that doesn't. What about its hands? What about its front paws or hands? What were they more? Were you able to see that? Did you notice?
Yeah, I'd say they were more like raccoon paws. Like the fingers were there, but the fingers weren't as long as ours were. They were kind of stubby, you know, kind of like maybe here is where the fingers ended.
Okay.
So they were stubby little fingers. They weren't, you know, long human fingers.
Did it have like long claws or anything?
Oh yeah, I could see the claws. I could definitely see the claws on there. Yeah.
So the thing I saw, it had normal dog-looking paws. That's why I said everything about mine to me looked like a normal dog. So I've always been hesitant to say it's some supernatural Dogman thing, but that's
right.
I don't know.
That makes sense.
Did it have a tail?
You know, I didn't really notice because when it turned around, that's when I started to, you know, take off. You know, the minute it turned its back, I was out of there. So I didn't really look to see if it had a tail.
That's the one thing that I've heard various things about when it comes to Dogmen is a lot of people say they don't have tails. But then I've heard people say, well, it did have a tail.
Right.
So I don't. There's so many different stories and different depictions of what these things could be.
Oh, yeah.
You've
the
had
whole
werewolves.
Dogman phenomena is just, it's confusing. I mean, it's interesting, it's intriguing, but it's very, very confusing ultimately.
This
You
will
know,
piss
so-
people off, the purists, but like if you relate werewolf lore to Dogmen, they're like, there's no way that's the same thing because werewolves are humans that turn it. I'm just saying the general depiction is a humanoid-looking canine. So in the 1700s, I think it was, didn't they have the werewolf trials in France? That's
Yes.
when they were burning people because of being accused of being a werewolf, almost like the Salem witch trials here.
Well, I
You
mean,
had
my theory kind of follows along with what you said, Brandon. I believe that, you know, ancient Europeans were seeing Dogman, and because they were walking bipedally, they automatically, being as superstitious as they were, they assumed that it was somebody that was cursed to an animal form. So I think Dogman and werewolf had some close ties together. I really do.
Yeah. And then almost every, I don't know what, I won't say every, but there are so many different places across the world that have their own depictions of Dogmen type creatures.
Yeah.
So even throughout, obviously, when he mentioned Anubis earlier, like ancient Egypt had that, but they also had a lot of other weird alligator-headed, eagle-headed depictions.
Oh,
of
yeah.
them. So
And Anubis was very much 100% a humanoid body with a canine head and face.
Yeah.
So I mean that wasn't even like a blending of anything. So
then there was the stories of Saint Christopher, I think it was, where he had
the dog-headed saint.
the dog-headed saint pictures and paintings and everything else too, which I always thought was strange. Why would they paint a wolf or dog head on a saint for Christianity or whatever? It didn't make a whole lot of sense why they were depicting him that way.
Yeah. I mean, well, if they saw that, it would make sense that they were painting that. Because it's really what they saw, and they were just trying to relay what it looked like.
I don't know if
do you think that's necessarily true though? Because I mean, think about all the what would you call it, creepypasta type stories that we have, like Slender Man and stuff like that, that has no basis in reality, but you know, has become this thing because it's cultural now, and You know, do you think it was necessarily depicted in the pictures because they were being seen?
Mm.
Or could it be a similar case as to that was a wild explanation for it? Somebody maybe wrote it in a newspaper of the time, and then people just became hysterical and thought, this has got to be what it is.
I think it could be a little bit of both. I mean, I think some people were, trying to relay what they had really seen, but I do think that, hysteria did kick in to a certain extent as well.
I want to try and get this Facebook working if you want to take over for a second, because I'm trying to figure out what's going on with it. I hate technology.
So what would you say that was like, I know like in a situation like that, time seems to either accelerate rapidly or decrease rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to get but like how long did you stand there and watch this thing and engage with it looking at you before you were like, no, fuck this, I'm out? Because it had been pretty goddamn quick for me. I'm not gonna lie.
It felt like an hour, but I think really in reality it was about maybe 5 minutes. I mean, I wanted to take off. I wanted to jet and just go in the house and, be away from whatever the hell that was. But my brain's saying, yeah, we should run. But my body's going, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. It just, logic wasn't kicking in, and I think in a way, maybe logic was taking hold, because if you run from something that's predatory, it's going to give you chase. Bears will do it. So I think maybe it was just a total of 5 minutes. I don't really think it was even long at all. I really, really don't.
So saying that, like at the point that you did decide to leave the area,
mm-hmm.
how did you leave?
Well, the minute it turned its back, I ran.
So it turned away from you.
Yeah, it kind of turned its back, and that's when I was like, there's my opening. I'm out of here. And I bound up those steps, man. I mean, I don't think I ever made up any pair of steps or any flight of steps that quickly in my life. I just, boom, jumped right up him. I was in his house, and I was just locking his doors and bolting his windows like I was trying to save my life. So
where would it have went? Was there like when I think of Arizona, I just kind of think of desolation, because it seems like most of it when you're driving through there.
Well, my theory is it went down into the riverbed. There's a washway that runs right through the town that I lived in.
Mm-hmm.
And all you would have to do is you go from my friend's yard, you walk maybe like 20 feet, and there's a, downcline right there where you just, go down the hill, and it takes you right into the riverbed. So I think it went down there, and it just kind of worked its way to wherever it came from.
Is there a lot of mountain areas where that was?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We were surrounded by mountains on all sides.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And what's really interesting to note, though, is there was a lot of abandoned mines in that town.
That's what I was getting ready to ask. Is there any caves or mines or anything in there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we had plenty of mines because it was a mining town. So, there was plenty of mines that were there that were abandoned. So people never went to them anymore. And they were pretty much, you're not allowed to go there. They have signs saying no trespassing. So people didn't go. Doesn't mean that animals wouldn't go, though.
Yeah. I've kind of wondered if, not so much with dogmen, but there's all sorts of stuff related to like caves and mine systems that people see a lot of weird humanoid type creatures.
Yes.
So
that was always a fear of mine, that I was going to see the pale crawlers or something like that when I was out and about.
There's a big argument online. I've noticed that people argue about pale crawlers because they say, oh, they're just rakes and they're creepypastas. Like, well, there's been reports of these things long before the rake was ever made.
Yeah. Some tribes actually called them the Googout. They were called the people before the people. Mm-hmm. So the rake was just a creepypasta. That's all that was. But the pale crawlers were most definitely a thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what I've tried to say to some people, but I'm not an expert or anything about it. I was like, I've heard about those before the rake was ever popular.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Dover Demon could be considered a pale humanoid, and that was way back, in the 60s or 70s?
Yep.
So
early 60s.
Yeah. So that predates the rake by years and years and years. So I do think there's something to the pale crawlers. I really do.
I've kind of wondered if like the Dover Demon isn't something connected towards like what people see with the Kentucky Goblin type things too, because there's similar depictions of them. Obviously, the goblins have a little like they're smaller. They're not as linky, but
Right.
again, it's still
It's
the
possible.
cave system. Like it seems to all line up around the cave systems.
Yeah, that's ideal shelter though, because I mean, if you think about like mines and caves, some people don't want to go in there because there's that danger that the cave could collapse or whatever. So for animals to go and hide in those caves, it's optimal. That's where I would hide. If I was something like a dogman or a pale crawler, you bet your butt, man, I'd be up in those caves. Nobody's gonna find me there.
I've always kind of wondered if these things with caves, that movie, The Descent,
Yes.
Great.
it
movie.
always,
Yeah, excellent movie.
I always enjoyed that movie. I was like, man, I'm claustrophobic, so I'm not going to go spelunking, but this movie definitely makes me not want to go spelunking.
Yeah, I stayed away from caves for a long time after watching that movie, man. I saw that and I was like, nope, caves are a no. No.
No.
Yeah, interestingly enough, that movie was directed by the same guy who directed Dog Soldiers.
Yep.
And when the creature in The Descent, those humanoid looking moles or whatever the hell they were, he kept that completely under wraps, and the girls in the movie never saw it until they were filming the scene.
That's brilliant.
Because he was looking for that visceral reaction from them. And that was a great flick.
Yeah, that was. The second one left a lot to be desired.
Yeah,
The
that
first
was
one
bad.
was awesome.
So I didn't like the second one. But
Yeah, me neither. I was just like,
he didn't direct the second one though, did he?
I don't know.
Neil
I don't believe
Marshall or
so,
whatever
no.
his name. I
No,
don't know
you
if
think you're? Yeah, I think you're right on that. No, he didn't. No.
No, I always wish they'd done a follow up with Dog Soldiers. That was probably one of my favorite werewolf movies.
They were supposed to do a sequel. There was talk about it all over the internet last year, but they never made it come to pass. So
That was a great movie.
Oh, yeah. It's
The
gonna
way
be
it
hard
was
to top.
filmed, it was fantastic.
It's going to be hard to top the first Dog Soldiers.
Yeah.
Even when they make that sequel, it's going to be very, very hard to top that.
There was a
I
lot
just
of
saw. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I said there's a lot of good suit work of that nowadays. Everything's so CGI that it wouldn't look as good. I
Yeah.
don't think.
Yeah, we're oversaturated with CGI.
No.
Practical effects are much more effective.
Yes. Pumpkinhead being one of the best examples. There.
That was awesome.
I still
love
love Creature from the
Pumpkinhead.
Black Lagoon from the 1950s.
Oh, yeah.
That's still
You know,
an
that-
amazing suit.
That is one of my all-time favorites.
Mine too. See?
You know,
Yep, I am your head.
it just was so far ahead of its time as far as the design of the suit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't big and bulky. It really pulled off what a gill man would look like. I mean, it was, and it's still till this day, if you watch it, it still holds up.
Yeah. And that's one of the few monsters that was designed by a woman. So she was a makeup artist.
Yeah.
She was a makeup artist and she designed the Gill Man. So
Yeah.
You guys still hear me?
yes.
Yes.
For some reason, my camera shut off.
Yeah, you were
Yeah.
glitching out a little bit there for a minute.
And we haven't even started talking about entities yet.
No.
Uh-oh.
I said that all the power on this camera completely went out. See if I
Bryce
can-
Edwards, I see your comment there about the crow. I was just going to bring that up. Skarsgård, okay, kudos to you. You're a decent actor. There's some things that should not be messed with. Don't ever remake Jaws. I don't care.
yes.
I don't care if the shark looks hokey. That you can't mess with that. That movie was perfection.
Agreed.
The shark was secondary. It was, and the crow, that is Brandon Lee's legacy. He literally died for that movie. So, the feeble attempts that they've already tried to, and now with a reinvention of it, just really in bad taste. My
agree.
opinion. The crow. There was some portions of that story that could have been done better. But don't mess with it. Leave it alone.
Yes.
It's perfect.
Yeah, the new Crow looks like a Joker, man. That's Heath or Jared Leto's Joker right there.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
He looks
Got
like one of
tattoos and
the.
everything.
I keep thinking he's going to be one of these new mumble rappers. That's what they kind of look like with the The
Machine Gun
tattoos
Kelly
and-
wannabe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got the whole can't think. I keep thinking of extensions or whatever the guy's name was. The guy that has like the 69 on his head or something. I'm not into
Yeah, it's a
rap, so
shame.
I can't name him.
Yeah, I can't either.
Isn't his
so-
name 6ix9ine?
I think that's what it was. My kid had something like extension or whatever on his playlist on his phone. I was like, "What is this?" So you can't be listening to this crap. Too young for that. It doesn't even look like Bill Skarsgård to me. It kind of looks like that Cameron Monaghan guy from what's the
Gotham.
Gotham, but he was also on Shameless.
Shameless. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one I keep thinking of when you look at the picture of it. That's what I thought it was at first. I was like, wait a minute, that's not who that is. But it kind of looked like him because
It did. Yeah. Now that you bring that up. Yeah.
I had no idea Skarsgård is like 6'7".
He's that tall?
That tall.
Yeah.
His
And
brother
boy.
Alexander.
never would have
taller
got
than
that
me.
from watching it. that just never came across that way, but yeah.
Wow. He's a big boy.
First time I seen him was in a show on Netflix, and I can't think of what it was called, but he was kind of like a vampire. There's a werewolf in it, and then I can't think of. I only watched the first season. I think there's like a couple of them, but I forget what it was called. But this was probably like 10 years ago. But no, that was
Wow.
the first time I'd ever seen Skarsgård. Then like I found out he was playing it. I was like, oh, I remember that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned something about a Wendigo. You want to?
Oh
Talk
yeah,
about
that's my forte right there. I've really taken a lot of deep dives into the whole lore and the myth of the Wendigo because I've seen so many people misrepresenting the whole Wendigo thing. They ignore the Algonquin and the Korean Ojibwe mythology, and they depict it in a way that it was never depicted. When you see the stag-headed beast, that was never the Wendigo ever. So I made it a point to really start exploring that myth and start bringing those original stories to the people and educating them on that stuff.
Yeah, I've tried to talk to some people because I keep seeing people post up the bastardized version of the Wendigo, like the skull heads, the deer, and everything else. Like, that's not really what a Wendigo was. My latest episode that just dropped this week was the guy was talking about kind of like a pale crawler, but he said it was like a humanoid type thing.
Mhm.
And the way he was describing it, I was like, did it look like this? And he said it was almost like spot on. I was like, well, that's what a Wendigo is supposed to be. Actually looks
Yeah,
like.
I do actually wonder if maybe the pale crawlers were tied into the Wendigo in a way. It would make sense because, if the tribes came across these pale crawlers way back in the day, that's before we had science, before we had social media. We had word of mouth, but word of mouth took a lot longer to go from, the States to Canada. So if people in the States were seeing it, people in Canada wouldn't know. So maybe these tribes were seeing these pale crawlers and they thought, oh my God, they look like humans, but they're feral humans. That's Wendigo. I think it's part of it. I don't think it's the whole Wendigo lore, but I think it has a part in it.
Yeah. Now, where did it originate from? Wasn't it more of the tribes up in the northern part of the country?
Yeah,
Like
it was the
up towards
Algonquins
Canada.
and the Crees. The Algonquins and Crees in Canada. And it
Mhm.
used to be just like exclusively a Canada thing. And, nowadays it trickles down to Minnesota. But yeah, it was all a tribal belief back in those days. And not a lot of people focus on that part.
Mhm. What else is there that you've kind of come across that let the audience know about?
Well, I mean, the whole Wendigo phenomena itself, it's actually pretty terrifying because you look at the story of Swift Runner, and it shows that it's not really a physical entity. It's more of a, like a spirit, a nature spirit, possibly, where it can actually take hold of a human being and turn them into a monster, so to speak. So, that's always something I found really, really interesting because with Swift Runner, to this day, we don't know where his body's buried at.
Now, to become a Wendigo, wasn't it someone that had to be a cannibal? Is that how it
That's
started?
one way. That's the more popular way, but there were other methods too. Like somebody could be cursed or nightmares. Nightmares could actually open the doors to your mind so a Wendigo could enter your body. The Algonquins and the Crees, they have what are called Pewaganok, okay? And these are dream spirits that will come to you and they'll give you visions or they'll bring messages in your dreams. The Wendigo's kind of like that, where it can be manifested in your nightmares. And once it starts manifesting in your nightmares, it's when it starts taking over your consciousness.
So I'm not 100% familiar with a lot of the Wendigo lore. I've only heard bits and pieces. And all I ever knew was the antler-headed Wendigo, because even if you type up Wendigo, that's one of the first things you see.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Like the actual depictions, you don't find that out till you actually do like a lot of digging into it, and then you find out what the real versions are. But why do you think, I have my own theory, but why do you think they changed the depictions of what they look like?
I believe there's a couple of reasons for that. If you look at Algernon Blackwood's book, The Wendigo, the drawings in there did show a giant creature that had something that looked like antlers coming from its head. But what people don't look into is Algernon Blackwood wasn't trying to relay that they were antlers. Those are supposed to be branches, because Wendigo are supposed to camouflage themselves with debris from the forest. So that was misinterpreted. Another reason is because Norse mythology and European mythology found its way into the Algonquin and Cree stuff, and it was a hybridization. So, when they started doing that, they realized that the stag-headed monster looked far more menacing than what the Wendigo actually looked like.
Someone that I talked to and kind of read into it, they think like the depictions of Wendigos, you're not supposed to actually know what they look like, because it almost, not so much like a curse, but if you see one, like it comes after you. So someone said they changed the depictions of it so you don't get like haunted by the Wendigo. I said, I don't know. That was like a Reddit thing, so who the hell knows?
Yeah, that was never in the Algonquin lore. They never spoke of it that way. And you're going to find there's a lot of stuff that was added to the mythologies of the Wendigo. Like, the mimicry. They say that a Wendigo will mimic a human. That was never really spoken of in the original lore. What they meant by mimicking a human back in those tales was it would take on a human's body, and it would make you think it was that human being until it revealed it was the Wendigo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I say they're talking about the movie Antlers in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
We just watched that last year right when it came out for streaming.
That was a good movie.
Yeah. It's based off I actually read the short story of it that came out during COVID era, I think. The story did, and they were supposed to be making a movie, so I read like the little short story of it, and it was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
they did a good job. I mean, they held pretty close and pretty accurate to, what we know of the oral traditions.
Yeah.
I thought they did a really good job. I mean, they held true to it. I mean, once the creature kind of morphed into whatever it was there at the end, that was a little much, but I thought they did a really good job with that.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I appreciated it for what it was.
It was good for being low budget for what, like the way they did it and everything else. It wasn't like over the top, but yeah, the ending was a little much, but I understand they had to.
There had to be the payoff. It was a monster movie, so
yeah, absolutely.
But I don't know of any other movies that really have a Wendigo in them.
There's a movie called Wendigo from the late 90s, and that one wasn't all too good, but it does touch on the whole psychosis part of the Wendigo phenomena. Ravenous was actually based on the Wendigo as well.
I've never seen that.
Back in the mid 2000s, I think it was 2008. There was a weekly TV show called Fear Itself, and each show was kind of like the X-Files was. There was no overarching story about UFOs, but each episode each week was about different something or other. And there was one. It was called Skull and Bone or Skin and Bones, and that was a pretty damn creepy Wendigo.
Yes.
That they did a pretty good job on it. That was a good short story. I would definitely recommend if you can find that online somewhere, checking that out, because for its time that was pretty damn good.
Yeah, Lost Tapes did an episode on the Wendigo too.
Yeah.
I think it was season 3. I think.
I tried to watch that show when it was on TV, but it was always hard to see because it usually came on late at night on like Animal Planet or something.
Yeah. Yeah, you can find it on YouTube nowadays.
No.
Mm-hmm.
I always forget to ever think about looking up shows on YouTube for whatever reason. I don't ever think about it.
Because it's YouTube.
Yeah. I'm not a big YouTube fan, and here we are on YouTube. But
Right.
me and YouTube have had our issues just because of apparently comments that get said on interviews. I've already had an episode banned. I've already gotten a couple warnings.
Really? Wow. That didn't take long.
No, this happened a little over a year ago. Someone said something about what happened during 2020, and all the red flags came out.
Oh my.
Yeah, so I guess that's one rabbit hole that YouTube won't let you go down.
Yeah, no, it's better you don't anyway.
Yeah.
You'll trigger a lot of people with it.
Yeah, I've come to notice that, especially doing this podcast and
Yeah.
the way I am with my opinionated stances on certain things. It rubs people the wrong way, but
Hey, welcome to the podcasting world, man.
Yep. So I'm not trying to sound like a dick, but
Why not? I sound like a dick all the time, dude. I do it on purpose sometimes.
See, and I don't. I ride the center line. The center line. I don't. I mean, I've always looked at it as I'm here to facilitate the conversation. You know, and the jacked up part of it is that I've had some negative comments left in reviews.
Right.
And what the idiots don't recognize is that it's the guest that is saying the things that are inflammatory.
Yep. You get blamed for it though.
But they blame me. And it's like, no, it's not me. Because you can ask any one of the people in the chat here tonight that are here from the Uncomfortable Discord, and they'll tell you I ride that center line. It's not about me putting my opinion out there.
I'm calling your bluff. They're all saying that you're a troublemaker in the chat. No,
Are they
I'm
really?
kidding.
Listen,
No, I'm
you're the
kidding.
bastards. You guys quit saying that. But what happened in 2020, I mean, man, are we really at a place now that we can't talk about it? We can't mention it without it being an issue.
I think it's triggering for some people, man.
I mean, flat out, I think it was designed as a method to thin the herd.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was supposed to be released or not, whether it got out accidentally or not, up for debate.
Right.
But if you go back to the first 3 months, Brandon's sitting there like, God damn it, this is going to get taken down. You go back to the first 3 months and you look at all the data that they were putting on the TV in front of us, and they were showing the age groups of all the people that were being eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
You will find that it was the age group that was most heavily responsible for the draw on Medicaid and Medicare and Social Security. Those were the age groups. And it wasn't until about 3 months into it when you started to notice on the news that they started talking about younger demographics starting to get it. And I think that quite possibly could have been an altering of the original to start encompassing a younger demographic so that it didn't look so freaking obvious. Because how many years had we heard Social Security is not going to last? You better start saving for your future. Don't rely on Social Security because it's going to be gone. Yeah. And, Medicaid and Medicare, baby boomers, man, they were eating it up. They were taking it all, and I really, it would not surprise me to find out that there was some tomfuckery going on there. But
yeah, it wouldn't be surprising
whether it was intentionally let out, up for debate. But
yeah, we'll never know. We'll never know that answer.
I have my own opinions, but I'm trying not to get banned.
Oh, nobody asked you anyway. No, I'm playing.
No.
No, but I
It's,
think, like from my standpoint, for my show, I really don't think that I don't really think it's about me or my beliefs or my personality. It's about my ability to carry on a constructive conversation with intelligence and with empathy for the person that's sitting across from me. And will I ask questions that might back somebody into a corner?
Absolutely.
Sure. But if they can walk themselves out of it, good on them. And then my listeners get to determine whether or not they think this person is straight or not.
Hey, just doing your job the right way in that case.
Yeah. And I can't bring myself to be, I can't let my personal thoughts out. I don't know. Maybe it's a weird little thing that I have that, I want to keep part of who I am and part of what I think to myself, keep it in private. I have no interest in hearing people's negative comments about me. So, I just try to ride the line, and,
fair enough.
People who know me in real life, they know my beliefs and all that. But the show is for the people that listen to it. And that's to bring guests on and get them to talk about their experiences.
Right. I get that.
But that's just one show.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anybody else is right or wrong.
Correct.
I think people listen to other types of shows to hear those things, like what Brandon was talking about.
I'd say you're right on that.
The way I go with mine, there's a lot of things that I've talked to with people about that I'm not 100% believing what they say. Not that I think they're lying. It's their truth, but I try and remain somewhat skeptical on a lot of things.
You got to be skeptical to a degree, though. I mean, keep an open mind, but not so open that your brains are leaking out. It doesn't hurt if you're questioning things or maybe even doubting things to an extent. Just don't be a jerk about it. But
if you're not skeptical, you can't come up with good questions.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And I think a lot of people see skeptics as bad guys, but we're not the bad guys because we're skeptical. We're just
try not to actually
hard to ask questions.
Like question them to the extent of like to disprove or prove anything. Like my thing is I kind of give them a platform, like they can share their stories, whatever experiences. We'll chit chat here and there, but I'm not out to try and like, oh, well, why did this happen? Now there's been a few things. I've recently just had an interview and it'll come out probably like 2 or 3 months from now. But the guy said he could walk in front of a security camera and it wouldn't pick him up. So I asked, I was like, can you still do that? He said he thinks he can. I was like, I would like to see that because I'm pretty sure everyone that's listening is going to say that's bullshit. Because,
well, you know what they say, outstanding claims require outstanding evidence. Okay. So if somebody makes a claim like that, it's your job to call their bullshit and say, hey, if you can do that, prove it to me and the audience that you can do that. How do you do it? What's the process behind you doing something like this? And if they can't do it, if they can't answer those questions, you got to call them out on that.
Yeah,
that's the job of researchers. Okay. We have to ask those hard questions. We have to ask you those things that you don't want to answer that makes you feel uncomfortable because we want the truth about it. We don't want the lies.
Uncomfortable.
I've had people that come on here and talked about like where their consciousness gets taken and they go through space for years, like the secret space program. And I've always been hesitant on that because if they can control time, what is the point of even abducting people if they have the ability to control time? Once you control time, you can do whatever you want. Why do they need to bring a random kid at 6 years old, send him through space and then travel him all the way back to Earth? Like,
it's a valid point.
Like, if you can control time and you can do all that, what do you need us for? You can do whatever you need to do. You don't have to continue to make clones and put alters and everything else. So to me, that it doesn't add up. Like none of that makes any sense. And
Yeah.
I've had a few people on here that talked about that. I've had a few more that reached out to me, and I've kind of been hesitant to even bring them on because at what point am I doing it for just to have an episode? Or if I feel like people
Right.
really need to come on here and share their experiences. Now, if people really believe this is what's going on with them, I understand that. But then you have other people who just do it because they want to come on here and feed you a line of bullshit. So
Yeah.
where do you draw the line at? So I've been trying to
why
be
you gotta-
more.
You have to ask those hard questions, man. You got to
Yeah.
feel it out, and really see what you can, cull from it. If you can get some truth from it, good for you. That's what you have to do as a show host.
You made the comment, their truth. And I think there's some legitimacy to that. I think, as a host, do I have the right to question their truth? In a personal nature, yes. On the show, no. So I do believe, I've had some people on that have talked about some wacky shit. That is clearly hard for me to buy.
Mm-hmm.
But the conversation leads me to believe that these people believe what they're saying.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, and that has to be taken into consideration. I don't know that it necessarily has to change my opinion of it, but it has some weight.
Mm-hmm.
The issue that I have found with some guests is that I believe that they've had a significant event or experience in their life.
Oh,
but then, go ahead.
Oh, you want me to go ahead and answer the question?
But then that's not just good enough for them. They have to embellish, or they have to add to the story, because, and I think human nature is to, if something happens to you and you don't understand it, you want to explain it. Right. So,
Mm-hmm.
But I've had people that, and I truly believe that they've had an experience that they just can't comprehend, don't understand, and have nothing, right? They've got no explanation, but then they add to it. And then that part becomes disingenuous.
Yeah.
And that I think people can see through really quickly.
Yeah.
And then it's like, man, I wish you wouldn't have done that. I wish you would have just, what your topic was weird and it was valid, and, let's just keep it at that. But then, to go on and add some stuff that's just like, all right, I don't believe that. And that's a rough one for me because, I know my listeners are the demographic of people that listen to me are not, they're not kids, they're not even, in their 20s as much as they are in that 30 something to 50 something age range.
Right.
And they're smart enough. They're savvy. And, that's why, like when I said, my questions, I'd never sit down with a guest and have a list in front of me of questions. I've not done it one time. My questions all get generated from the conversation.
Yeah.
And
as it should be.
I think that makes for an earnest conversation. I think it makes it where nobody ever listens and says this is scripted. But I pay close attention, not only to the words that are coming out of their mouth, but like with the advent of the video and being able to see them, their
body language,
and where are they looking when they're telling me this, and there's some telling things that you can pull out of being able to see somebody in conversation. And
yep.
I don't even know why I went that far into that, but I guess it's like, if you think you saw a ghost, or in your house, you were hearing voices, you know, that in itself is strange enough. Leave it at that, man. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to say that, I tore the wall out and I found a Ouija board with a human skull duct tape to it. No, you
Right.
didn't. You didn't. There's no way you did. I guarantee it. Just
Separating the story, just trying to make it a bit more exciting, I think.
hearing voices, that's creepy enough on its own.
Yep. Bryce had a question, Brandon.
Yeah. Bryce's question, I think, relates to what Erick's talking about. Bryce's question was, bring it back up. Have you ever heard anyone claiming to defeat a skinwalker in combat?
Well, I'm going to answer by saying that I think I know who you're talking about. I'm not going to mention any names, but is it possible? Yes. Is it incredibly difficult? Also, yes. In order for this person to defeat a skinwalker / Yinararushi, you'd have to have some really, really good medicine on your side, and you'd have to know exactly what you're doing. So, did this person defeat one? I'd have to hear their story in its entirety and see how they react to certain questions, but it's possible, though.
If it's the same person that I'm thinking of, I interviewed him, and he's on one of the episodes, I think episode 37 or 38. If that's the same person that Bryce was talking about, because that's...
Yeah, I think we're all talking about the same person here. I'm pretty sure.
Probably.
Pretty sure of it.
That is, again, it's like I wasn't there. I don't know shit about skinwalkers or anything.
My
about
only
lore.
hiccup is like Yinararushi aren't really known to go after Caucasian people, so this is a Caucasian guy, then why was the Yinararushi going after you? What did you do to provoke it? And what really is the whole story behind that?
Yeah. That's I'm not going to talk shit about my guests, so I'll just leave it at that.
Well, no, I mean, as somebody that's, who does a lot of the skinwalker research, though, that even makes me kind of quirk a brow, go, okay, did you really combat one, or are you just trying to get popular? You're not making stuff up on the fly, are you? Because, I mean, they got to realize that's pretty offensive to the Navajo / Dene people. You shouldn't be taking that thing and running with it, but...
That's kind of where I go back to what I'd said earlier, is like, at what point do I take these episodes? I release them, but is it because for the entertainment purposes that people are doing this, or is it something that they really believe in? And I don't want to not air someone's episode because if this is what they actually believe happened, then I'm saying, well, I don't believe it, so I'm not going to air your shit.
Well, you know what, Brandon? There's a certain way I can help you kind of decide if it's true or not, okay? Depending on where this epic battle took place, if it's not within the area of the 4 sacred mountains.
Exactly.
It wasn't a Yinararushi, okay? So if it was like someplace like Oklahoma or whatever, I'm going to call bullshit and say you're lying, okay? Because 4 sacred mountains are just so damn vital to the whole skinwalker lore and the belief that if it's not within the 4 sacred mountains, it's bullshit.
Like I said, I'm not up on the whole skinwalker lore or anything like that, and that was not even part of the discussion of what this episode was supposed to have been about. But again, people reach out to me, I schedule interviews, and then I just let them go how they go, and then it comes out and people start getting mad at me because the whole skinwalker is like, I had no idea it was fucking about a skinwalker.
Well, the thing is with me though, it's like I think I take that kind of stuff personally because I've spent so much time and so much energy, spending time with the Dene people, the Navajo people, that I fell in love with their culture and the people. So when somebody is saying, oh, hey, I saw a skinwalker, but I'm over here in Kentucky, I'm like, really? You're going to try to lie to me like that? You're going to bullshit? You're going to use a skinwalker because it's popular when you don't even know what the hell it is? Okay, jackass, whatever. They get the middle finger and I walk away.
No. So that's what I've been learning here in the last year and a half of trying to do this podcast is people get very sensitive about cryptids. What's a cryptid? What's not a cryptid? What is a spirit? What is a skinwalker? What is
Let me add to this though, Brandon. The definition of what a cryptid is, it is not up for debate, okay? What a cryptid is an unverified animal that's rumored to exist, okay? We, as modern day people, don't get to change a very old term to fit what we want cryptids to be. It's not debatable. You can't change it. Stop altering it. Learn what the definition is and stick to it. Aliens are not cryptids, okay? The Mothman, I don't consider the Mothman a cryptid because it's, probably ultra-terrestrial, okay? Braxy is not a cryptid. It's an alien, okay? Skinwalkers and Wendigos, not cryptids. Bigfoot, Maybe. Nessie? Yes. Something like the megalodon? Absolutely. But if it's not an animal, it's not a cryptid. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. That's the problem, though, is when people, mainly it's been the attacks on the Wendigo people that I've seen, because they say, oh, they look like deer, this and that. So people think they're a cryptid, and then they're getting tore up by everyone because they're like, they're not cryptids. So I was like, I didn't say they were. I didn't know I'm more of the quiet person that just kind of stalks around on the internet and just watches what everyone else is arguing about, because
I used to be quiet like you, but I was like, yeah, no.
But
oh, Lady Hawk has a question, I think, too. Yeah. Lady Hawk, what happened is Algernon Blackwood's book, if you look it up on Google, he had drawings in that book. And what he was showing was a giant figure that had branches actually on its head, because the Wendigo is known to use the foliage and the debris from a forest to hide itself. People misinterpreted that and they thought, oh, it's deer antlers, but it was never meant to be that way. So it's a lot of misinterpretation and a lot of people thinking, oh, well, the stag-headed antler thing looks cooler than the real thing. No, it doesn't. Not at all. In fact, the original Wendigo is far more terrifying for me. When you look up what the real Wendigo looks like, I don't want to see that. I'd rather see the deer-headed thing.
I don't want to see any of it.
I want to see a Wendigo from the distance, a very, very far distance with a lot of people in between us.
I'm perfectly happy talking about the shit. If I were to see anything, seeing a Bigfoot would be the one. And I've said this before. It would be me standing outside my car, leaning up against it, probably still running, with it about 100 yards away from me, walking out of a tree line, crossing over a cut where the telephone lines run, or the electrical lines run, before it goes into another part of the woods. 100 yards away gives me enough time to jump in the car and get the hell out of there.
I want to see it up close. If I see Bigfoot, it's got to be up close. It absolutely has to be, or I'll be very disappointed.
Yeah. When you talk about 800 to 1,000 pound wild animal, no, I don't want to see it up close. I'd like to see a picture of it up close. Yeah.
There you go.
But physically, to be in the same, to be in the strike zone, no. Nope. No. Because I'm fat and I'm old. And you get me.
At least you're honest.
We have Harley been hanging out here. We said to bring him on about 10 o'clock, so we're going to bring him on. He's had some recent experiences with some Sasquatch and Dogman stuff down in the LBL, so.
There you go.
You there, buddy?
How's it going, guys?
How you
What's
doing?
going on, Harley?
Nice. Just ready to talk to Bigfoot and Dogman.
Hey, Harley.
How you doing, Ryan?
I'm doing okay. How you doing, man?
Doing good.
You just got back from your trip down in the LBL. How'd that go?
It didn't go like I expected it was going to. I mean, I guess I was in the wrong area. I was on the south end of the area where LBL is, and I mean, that's never came across anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a bummer, but I've talked with Daryl Denton a lot in Martin Grove, and they said they're there. So
never been down that way. So kind of drove through Tennessee and Kentucky a couple of months ago, and I was like, man, as we're driving through, I'm looking around. I was like, this is definitely prime territory for some weird shit to be down in these mountains.
You have no idea.
You sent me some photos and some stuff earlier. Was that from this past trip?
No, this is just what all I've accumulated over the past 2 months.
For anyone out there, Harley, he was actually on an episode a while back. He had those calls. He's been on quite a few podcasts. Weirdly enough, him and I shared the same one when we were on Sasquatch Chronicles, and we got put on the same episode together, but I'd already interviewed Harley, and then Harley's episode started coming out on everyone else's shows, but mine I already had so much stuff recorded that I end up having to throw his episode in front of everyone else just because his episode was getting released on all these other podcasts. So by the time it would have came out, I'd have been like 3 months behind.
That's funny.
Yeah, I just thought that was just a strange coincidence. Like I was on Wes's show, and then lo and behold, Brandon was on the same episode.
Yeah. But we'd already recorded your episode with me, so very
We've got a lot more to talk about since I've been out recently.
What's some of the newer things you've come across?
Well, December 14th is actually when I had my second sighting. I took my wife with me. So what I do is I utilize a back trail camera, like Scott Carpenter had done. I don't know if any of you are familiar with him or not.
Oh, yeah.
So I would film behind me as I'm hiking down the trail. So this day I had my wife with me. I don't know why, but I didn't film, but I had my camera recording in the front. So we're hiking down the trail, and she just stopped. She says, "Look at that! It looks like something out of a war movie." So I looked, and it looked strange. And I went over there. I told her, "Stay on the main trail." I said, "I'm gonna walk over here and look." So I walk over there, and sure enough, there was an area where there had been trees broken and bent around. It looked like a nest, and in that area was it was about 8.5 feet long, of where something had been laying in there, like it had been hunting deer or whatever. That because there was a game trail that ran right by it. So I hollered at my wife. I said, "Yeah, this is something." I said, "You got a good eye." So she's still kind of skeptical about all this stuff. She thinks I'm crazy for going out and doing it, but I heard something moving up and to my right, and I was like, "Okay." So I hollered at her. I said, "I'm going to ease on further in the woods here and see what this is." I was like, "It could be a bear or anything." So I just wanted to see for sure. So I keep walking up through there, and I come across this big open trail that goes to the left and it goes to the right. So I'm standing there in the intersection of this game trail, and it's pretty good size. I guess it's an elk, because we have elk in this area too. And so I'm sitting here looking, and I catch a glimpse of something out of my right eye, and I just turn dead in my tracks, and I see it, and it goes behind this tree. So as I'm sitting here looking at this tree, and I'm trying to see if it's going to come out from around the tree, sure enough, it does. It comes out from around the tree, and it like crouches, and the only thing I can see is its face, because the brush was all around it, and the only thing I can see was its face. Well, I managed to snag a screenshot of the facial profile in the video that I was taking, and as soon as that happened, to my left, almost instantly, was a loud snap. And then right behind me, there was stomping in place. Like something was right behind me stomping. So I was just like, hell with this. I said, I'm going back to the main trail. I said, let's go. I said, I got too close. So I was definitely a lot closer than what my first sighting was in 2020. I mean, it was probably 25 yards away from me.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really close. Yeah.
All right, fellas, I am going to drop off. I got to get my dog out there. He's making noise.
Okay.
Not
a problem. Thank you for hopping on here and talking with us tonight.
All right.
See you, Ryan.
All right, my pleasure. I'll see you guys soon.
Ryan.
See you, Harley.
See you.
See ya. Y'all have a great night.
Too. Now, since your episode came out, I know you've been on a lot of different podcasts, and I've seen the stuff you've posted with the negative people being negative about the comments and the hating and everything else. Like, how does that make you feel when people are doubting the things that you said? Like,
well, it just makes me want to do it even more and prove them wrong.
No.
You know, I go out 2-3 times a week, and I'm getting remarkable stuff. You know, I found egg structures, I found arches, I found something the other day that looks like an asterisk. It was like an X, and it had another one laid over right on top of it. I mean, there's all signs right in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, 20 minutes from my house.
Mm-hmm. I've seen the comments just on my episode, and the consensus is for the Bigfoot sounds, People are saying it's a brachiosaurus. I was like, what?
I had people tell me it sounded like a whale too. I was like,
Yeah.
no, it's not a whale. And the craziest thing about that audio, I've had people tell me it was elk, it was coyotes, it was coon dogs, it was everything other than what it was. And I had that after we had talked. I had sent that off to some researchers, and there was more than one because of the sounds. There were different individuals making different
Mhm.
sounds. And I had a spectrogram done of that, and the vocalization ranged all the way up to 2,000 hertz.
What is the normal human range?
50 to 200.
Yeah.
In that range.
The one thing that seemed to be the most consensus was everyone saying it was a coon dog or a hound dog stuck in a tree. And I was like, is that a possibility that these dogs can go up trees? But there was a lot. It's weird because, and I've said this on other things, you could present an actual full-fledged video of a Sasquatch and people would still say it wasn't real.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Everyone, instead of trying, I'm not saying believe everything you see or listen to or whatever, but like so many people are here to disprove everything without taking any sort of possibility of maybe this was something else. But I understand why they're trying to disprove it too, because you want to rule out the possibilities of it just being misidentification.
Yeah, absolutely.
But when people come at it so negatively and attacking and this and that, it makes like, if someone really experienced it, this is why no one wants to talk about it, because literally you're being ridiculed right off the bat. Because
that's how I was with my first encounter. I didn't share it for 3 years after I had it. The first podcast that I ever went on was Bigfoot Society with Jeremiah Byron, and I was like, this was a huge relief to get to share my story. And if like I always say, if it leads to somebody else sharing their story, I done it. I helped somebody.
Yeah. That's why I think I was one of the first ones to kind of talk with you before you went on all the other shows. And I even kind of told you that. I was like, man, we'll put it out there. I was like, but people are gonna, it's just how it is. Like when you put things out there, people want to tear it apart. So.
Oh yeah, they want to pick it piece by piece.
No.
Well, I mean, I can step in here for a second on that topic, because I recently had Todd Standing on my show. And if you know anything about Todd Standing, he's arguably one of the more well-known names in Bigfootery. But he also brings along with it a lot of criticism. And, I spent 2.5 hours recording with him. I spent a good half hour before we started recording, and I've had a continued conversation with him since then. And kind of going back to Harley, before you came in here, we were talking about people who have had an experience in their life, whether it's paranormal or a sighting or anything. And then that just isn't good enough. Then they have to fabricate or elaborate or, make more out of it. And kind of, that if you saw a light in the sky that was not acting right, and in your gut, you knew that's not something that we have here that I've ever seen in the sky again or before. That should be good enough. You don't have to go and say, oh yeah, and then it came down and, I saw lights, coming out of the bottom of it, and they were taking people out of a farmhouse through the roof. Now you've just taken a very interesting story, a very believable experience, and now you've turned it into, now you're not being honest now. And the thing with Todd Standing is, with the length of time that I talked to that guy, He says a lot of crazy shit, man.
I can believe it.
But I firmly believe he believes that is his truth. That is his truth. And I do think that he had legitimate experiences with Sasquatch. But I think he is so incredibly passionate about wanting people to know that they're real, that he might have gone and done something he shouldn't have done to try to get that attention, not for himself, but for the topic. And I think that's kind of where he got his ass in a jam. It's amazing how terrible people can be in the community of Bigfoot. It is absolutely ludicrous the opposition that you will run into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now if you're posting pictures of a shrub with a red circle drawn in it, you know, like that. Here's my thing, like Dogman Facebook pages. You can go on any given day and you're going to see somebody post a picture of a scrub brush with a red circle drawn in it. And they're going to be like, oh, yeah. I'm like, there ain't a goddamn thing there. That's total horseshit. It's not there. Does that mean Dogman doesn't exist? No. But what you just did is you made a lot of people think that it's all bullshit. Because they'll see that one picture and they'll be like, fucking Dogman, is it real? No. There was nothing in that picture. You know, so that's a problem, especially when you start getting into the type of topics that we get into. It's like, man, just tell the story. You don't have to add to it. You know, an unusual experience is captivating in itself. I see Sus in the chat says the same with the UFO community, and it is to some extent, but it maybe I'm not in the right groups, but in Bigfoot stuff, my God, it's terrible.
Yeah,
I've had to leave so many groups, you know, and it's just all I want to do is see what people are talking about. See, you know, find out theories, find out, you know, all it takes is that one thing that resonates with you that it's like, oh shit, I experienced that too. That makes a lot of sense. But these people, they're just god awful.
Well, I'll tell you, that's one thing that I don't tolerate in my group. You know, I hit 3,600 members today in 2 months, and that's I mean, it's a safe place. You know, I don't tolerate any of the bullshit. You know, if people have something to say, they can share it in my group, and you know, it's helped them. You know, I've had people messaging me, you know, thank you for letting me post in your group, you know, to share what I saw. Whether it was credible or not, I mean, that's on them. That's between them and God, you know.
That's where I come to, like, why do people even bother to get online and spread a bullshit story in a group? For what purpose? Like, if you're out there and you actually experience something, that's one thing. But if you're just going to go in there and troll and make up a story, and then you can tell which ones are bullshit because they get further and further and further into it. When people ask questions, it just gets more ludicrous. That's where I start to question, like, what do they get? Internet clout. Okay. Like, you've got like 15 different people commenting on your post, and wow, you're awesome. Like, I don't understand the necessity of why people want to do that. And then it discredits anyone that actually had real stuff. And then when people start attacking these other people, they're watching and reading these comments and seeing it. So they're not going to speak out about what they have, like what happened with them, because they see how everyone gets chewed up by these other people.
Yeah.
But back to when you said talk about Todd Standing, I remember watching his documentary, and when you see the things that he shows on there, I won't make the opinions or whatever, but the one thing, it was very CGI looking to me. But
See, I'm not going to disagree with you that they may be disingenuous,
yeah,
but I don't see any CGI. And I've messed with video a lot, so and some software stuff. So I might have a little bit of an edge when I'm looking at stuff like that. So in that, I don't see anything that's CGI. Here's the problem for me is there's a lot of pictures out there of things that I think are legitimate photographs of a figure in the woods and could quite possibly be Bigfoot. There is nothing as clear as what he got. Okay. And if you got lucky and you got one shot that was crystal clear, but to be lucky 3 times and to get 3 perfectly framed faces only, and so that documentary came out in, was it 2017, I believe?
yeah.
Yeah, I think it was.
And he's talked so much about additional footage and other captures and other things that, it's mind blowing. You're not going to believe it when you see it. How fucking long are you going to wait before you show somebody? Where was the video of, the 10 minutes leading up to you sneaking up to this Sasquatch and getting a picture of its face? Okay, you're a good tracker. I firmly believe that the man spends an inordinate amount of time out in the wilderness. That's very apparent. But how did you get that good that you could sneak up on something that is a wild animal? The senses of any wild animal. Squirrels can't be the smartest thing in the world, but try to sneak up on a squirrel. You can't do it. You can't sneak up on a bird. You can't, hey, come on, man. And I'm not saying that they're not real. And I don't necessarily agree with the whole thinker thunker putting Standing's face superimposed and making it fit. I don't think it was him. But come on, man. you got that freaking lucky 3 times.
Doesn't one of the faces look completely different from the other one? Like
all 3 of them look remarkably different. And in my episode, I asked him about that because he was making very strong claims that they were all from the same clan. And I asked him, how do you just explain then the mass diversity between all 3 of them? Because you got one that looks like what you would typically think a Bigfoot from out in the Pacific Northwest look like. Then you have another one that is so much lighter skin and lighter colored in hair and almost has, not to be offensive to any type of human, but looks very much like to have Eskimo type features, a very, very strong Native American look to him. Yeah. And then you got the other one, the Kubota, the one that apparently came down and kicked the shit out of him, along with two others that were levying hammer fists on him and beat the hell out of him. That one it looks dead like it would be a chimp from hell. It looked like a demonic chimpanzee face. Terrifying looking.
That was probably the most realistic looking one that I'd seen on his video.
That's the same thing I thought too. Yeah. But the other two, people have called them Muppets. People have called them animatronics. I think you got to look at, what was this guy's resources financially? What were his resources? And, you can find out a little bit when you look into who they are, what they've been doing, how long they've been doing it. And, you know, he probably had some money behind him to afford him the ability to go out and spend as much time out in the wilderness as he does. But did he have the kind of money to generate? Because no matter how fake you think those things look, they're not cheap. They could not have been cheap to manufacture. You know, Les Stroud in Survivor Man Bigfoot, he contracted a company to make a set of fake feet so that he could try to make fake tracks. And his production company spent almost about $10,000 to get these silicone feet manufactured. So if it was almost $10,000 to do that, what do you think the cost of creating these three faces would have been? I would think it would at least be in that same neighborhood, if not a little bit more. Why did Eric have his head in that guy's ass? Hey, Topher, not sure what you mean by that. My favorite part was when he got rude and told Eric to take his head out of his ass. What am I missing here? I can guarantee I didn't have my head up anybody's ass.
I think he was talking about Standing telling you to take your head out of your ass. I don't remember that part.
Yeah, but what was that? I don't remember him being rude with me at all. Oh, well, whatever. But Todd said that on the show. Well, I'll have to go back and re-listen to that. You know, again, I go back to, you know, the guy spends a lot of time out in the woods. I'm sure that there is a component to his story that is true. He's had an experience. But are all of what he's claiming, is that all true? I don't believe it. You know, I hate to say it, but
think about how much money he makes to take people out there. Because
and he never said how much he charged, but he was very clear that he was not inexpensive.
Mm-hmm. Because he's taking them out in the middle of nowhere. Didn't the one guest that you had on before, Todd?
Logan.
Didn't he mention how much it cost? I thought he'd said something.
I believe he did. I can't remember what it was. I don't know that he was specific, but he alluded to
it's pretty expensive.
Being a good chunk.
Yeah. So if he gets, let's just say he takes 7 to 10 people out over the summer, that's a decent chunk of money for just summer. But I don't know what else he does during his normal life
But think about, you know, his popularity.
Yeah.
Prior to the release of that documentary was not what it is now. So, you know, was he generating that kind of income? Were people going out with him? Was he booking 30 to 50 people a season to take out there? I doubt that he was prior to the documentary.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now maybe, yeah.
I'd heard his name, I think, before 2017, but I don't remember what it was or where it was, but I know he's been labeled a hoaxer for a long time.
He has. And that's the thing. That's the other part of the community. It's like, once you've been labeled a hoaxer, you're a hoaxer. And I agree with that. I think you have to take that into consideration immediately. But again, is there the possibility, does the possibility exist that a component of his story is true, and by dismissing it and saying everything is a hoax, we're missing a component of it? I don't know.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. You know, you figured there would be some footage before he comes across those Sasquatch, you know, and it's just not there, and that brings more questions.
Yeah. Even if it's not more footage of the Sasquatch, I want to know what was the footage leading you up to that. I don't care if it was you walking through the, belly crawling through the weeds or anything like that. I mean, give me 10 seconds either in front or behind of that. And, you know, what did that look like? Because, you know, that could tell the story.
Oh, yeah, I agree. You know, but like when I go out, you know, I'm feeling the whole time that I'm out. You know, sometimes I'll get zapped. You know, for whatever reason, you know, the phones get zapped, and that's only happened to me twice. Uh, so I mean, I fully take into consideration, you know, running through everything of mine just to make sure, you know, if I have something good, I could go back and compare it, you know, and like show that that's just not a shadow or nothing like that, you know.
Where was your first encounter? Was in 2020, and it was in Virginia, right?
Yeah. Pound of Virginia.
You said that when you talked to the old guy, they call it the devil monkeys. I hadn't heard that before, but now since you'd said that and we had our interview, I've seen it pop up a lot lately. The term of devil monkey.
Yeah, it was a very strange term that I had never heard before, and it still rings through my head.
Now, with that, I don't know if Erick's familiar with your encounter, but he had audio recordings and he also had a couple of pictures. And the audio, it's like a whining, like, I don't know how to, it's almost like a moan type of a sound. And it does like it does sound similar, like if you ever hear whales, like the way they make those whale calls or whatever.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people have said it's a coon dog stuck in a tree and it's howling. So, and then I literally, I'm pretty sure it's on one of the YouTube videos for his episode. Someone says he recorded a Brachiosaurus from Jurassic Park. I was like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Crazy comment, man. I mean, it's
Inventive.
yeah,
anywhere that I have shared my encounter, you know, there's always going to be the smart alecks in the comments.
no,
It's just part of it.
Yeah.
but it does sound very like there's something definitely in the distance making noise, and it's like howling, but no one knows. No one was seeing it. He saw something peek around a tree, and that's where the whole Sasquatch thing came from. But these howls were later on after you saw it, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm, yes, after I saw it and the next night.
Yeah. So, was it the same thing? I mean, possibly, but a lot of, like I said, you saw something, you share it, and then everyone wants to rip it apart.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, I feel for people just because it takes a lot to come forward with it. And then when you do come forward with it, you're automatically labeled as a hoaxer just because someone says that's what it was. They said you faked the whole thing because you made up noises.
See, I think part of that is parasocial disorders that people have nowadays. You know, social media has become, and not only social media, but like us as podcast hosts, TV people, you know, whatever part of entertainment, or anybody who has, you know, at least has the sack on them to put themselves out in front of an audience, whatever it is they're doing. You're going to have people who latch onto you in one way or another. Either they, you know, I mean, the thing I hear about all the time is your voice. I love listening to your voice. You know, it's, or, you know, it's, you got a great sense of humor, or, you know, Brandon, he always wears funny hats, or, you know, there's going to be something that resonates with people who listen to you. And I think these people, like in these groups and these trolls, you know, they're lacking something in their life. And instead of trying to engage and want to be a part of the conversation, but they lack having an experience. So they feel like they don't have anything to offer. Instead of just being able to, yeah, golden throat was another one. Instead of having instead of having the patience to sit there and enjoy and learn from what all these other people are having to say, they have to find some way to insert themselves in it, because they're assigning like some level of excitement or, you know, recognition by having an experience. And, you know, unfortunately, I don't think everybody's smart enough to be able to, in their mind, conjure up the right words of how they could come up with making a good encounter sound believable. So instead, what they do is they will take any opportunity to just try to destroy what you're saying, because at least they're getting to have some involvement with you. They're, you know, they might piss you off enough that you're going to respond to their comment, and then you've got at least some kind of engagement. Now I'm having a personal relationship with Harley. It doesn't matter that it's a good relationship or a bad relationship. I'm interacting with somebody that is notable or noteworthy, and I think that's what a lot of these people are doing. You know, and then you got the other component of people who think they're a fucking expert. You know, there's no experts out here, man.
There is no such thing as an expert
in any of this. You know, I mean, any of it. There are no experts. And when you come off and you try to pull yourself off as an expert, you're just opening yourself up for, you know, I mean.
I made a post on Reddit, the Dogman group, about there is no experts in Dogman field, and people that want to come out here and say that they're an expert in it, you can't even prove the damn thing exists. There's been no physical evidence that ever proved a Dogman existed. You've seen no real live video like you have with the Patterson-Gimlin film. You've never seen anything like Dogman related, but yet people are out here trying to tell you Dogman, this is their eating habits. This is how their breeding habits. Like, they know all this stuff. How the hell do you know all this stuff? Well, they've been out in the field. They've researched it. If you've researched and you've gained that much knowledge, how come you can't produce any evidence of what you're actually researching? Like,
yeah,
that's where I always come back to it. Like, if you know all this stuff, but you can't produce any evidence, it's not evidence. It's your opinion, and it's your opinion because you've made it up. So,
you know, I had Jody Cook, I believe was his name. He was like the head of the Dogman project. I mean, they've got a bunch of different chapters all throughout the US, but he was like their main guy. And I had him on, and I'm like, okay, let's get to the bottom of this, man. Impress me, you know, tell me some shit that I don't, you know, that was the lamest freaking show. I mean, like, you've got every opportunity here to just wow me with all your evidence, and, you know, that you're meticulously thought up theories on what they are, where they come from, why they are, how they are. And the guy gave me nothing. And I'm like, you're the best they got? You're the head of this thing? You know, and I was just, at the end of that interview, I was,
ADP, they've all split up now. They just got their own, each state's got their own thing now already.
I have an interview next week with a lady that I think she's the head of the Indiana one. I think it's either next week or the following week, but I know she's scheduled here soon. She's part of the Dogman research for Indiana. So I guess they voted her on a year or so ago. I was like, I didn't realize they took votes for stuff like this. Like,
and what is a researcher for Dogman? What, I mean, you putting out kibble in a bowl and going, come here, boy, you know?
You're going out and playing fetch.
I think they go out and do their investigations or whatever. I was like, I can go out in my fucking backyard and do my own investigation, because I still live a couple miles from the damn area. I drive through it every day to take my kid to daycare. Like, I don't see Dogman. Now they built a nice big house. So Dogman must have come into some money, because he's got a nice big brand new house they built last year for him. But that's I don't know. That's where again, not to sound like a dick, but when people tell me they're researchers and they're experts and this and that, half the time I'm hesitant to even talk to them. I was like, what are you an expert in? Like, how are you an expert in cryptids? How are you an expert in aliens? Like, if you say you're a researcher, you've studied things, you've read things, you've looked at what other people have researched, cool. You're not an expert because there's been no proof presented to the mainstream. Maybe there is some stuff out there that we don't know about, put on the tinfoil hat and think it's all being covered up. But I don't feel like anyone out there on the internet is an expert of any of this stuff when it comes to weird shit.
Nobody. And never
Well, you
will
know,
be.
what gets me is like podcast hosts who particularly will call themselves a researcher.
BS.
What I do in no way would be considered research.
Mm-mm.
I collect stories.
You gain knowledge on those.
I gain knowledge on it. I have a very good ability to hang on to things that catch my ear, and I'm like, I've heard this before, and I'm going to put this in this file folder because I've already heard this once before. If it comes up again, and there's no real way that I can put any of these three people together and like they've heard each other talk, then that's something that stands out. I'm going to start looking for that in other people's experiences or what they, but that's not research. You know, and I know of a couple in particular that they're literally labeling themselves as researchers, and that annoys the piss out of me because that gives people a bad idea of what we think we are.
Yeah, they haven't ever probably put boots on the ground. I can grant you that.
Yeah.
I'll be the first person to say I don't claim to be anything. I was like, I'm a guy with a microphone. I don't know shit. I don't go out looking for these things. Like, I struggle to even believe. I want to believe, but I've even seen some shit and I still don't necessarily believe what I even saw. So it's like, I don't know.
But that you've got that story you can tell for the rest of your life because you remember it. You remember it like it was yesterday. You know, you can go into deep details. You know, and that's
It's
like
funny. The 17-year anniversary will be 2 weeks tomorrow. And I said that to someone. They're like, it really did fuck with you, didn't I? Was like, what do you mean? They're like, you remember the exact date that it happened. I was like, oh, never thought of it that way. But yeah.
I remember mine, September 23rd, 2020.
Oh.
It'll be 4 years.
Yeah. It's,
you know, it's just engraved in your mind.
I don't remember like I just remembered it was on a Friday. It'd been on my Friday morning. So when I went back and looked at like 2007, I was like, well, it had to have been this date. That's the only reason I remembered it was 17 years. But if it wasn't for my phone and a calendar that can scroll back that many years, I wouldn't have remembered the exact date. But I just remember it was a Friday because we went home for the weekend. So, but no, that's I don't like when people. What are you an expert of? What are you a researcher of? Are you actually out in the field? Just because people talk to you on the internet, just because you've read things online, if that's all it takes to be as a fucking expert, then I guess I'm an expert of nothing. Because... But I know, like I said, you've had some new developments. So what else have you been trying to wrap this up here in the next 10 minutes? So I want to give you a chance to talk about what you've come across recently.
Well, I'll talk about another short encounter that we had. January 7th, I had a good friend of mine, George Lunsford, with me. He's the author. He had never had a Bigfoot sighting. And him and another friend of ours, Robert Epworth, they came up here to this area where I've been researching and investigating. So we go into this area, and Robert had his wife with him. I said, you two stay on this main trail. I said, me and George cut off over in this holler. And I said, we'll go down this holler and come around and come back up to the trail. So me and George go down in this holler, and we're walking up through there, and I catch something in my peripheral. I see a black flash, and I stopped, and I told George I said stop, and I seen it go behind a tree. I said, George, I said, there's one right there. He said, where? I said, it's right there. I said, he's peeking his head out from around that tree. You know, he was kind of hesitant at first, and I said, he's right there. I said, stand right here. I said, I'll walk towards it and see if it'll move. I didn't walk 10 feet and I stepped on this branch and it sounded like a shotgun going off. And next thing you know, this Bigfoot is leaning out and looking at us. And we were about 20 yards away from it. He said, "Oh, shit." And I was like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, let's chase the damn thing." So we go off, start chasing this damn thing. And we go running through these laurel thickets and we're pushing the branches and shit out of our way. We lost it. But I mean, it was there and then it was gone like that. I don't know if you, I know you was going to try and get him on your show at one point, but I don't know if y'all ever got it worked out or not.
Yeah, I've like, interviewed George. His episode will come out in a few weeks. I have probably enough episodes recorded to take me into June already, and I've still got like.
That's awesome, bro.
That's why I've been debating on going back to releasing 2 a week, because I record 2 or 3 times a week, and I just get a huge friggin' backlog, and then I feel bad for recording people. I'm like, hey, when's my episode coming out? 4 months from now.
Yeah.
So
Or
it sucks because if I start releasing more than 1 episode a week and then I don't get any interviews and I run out of interviews, and I'm like, now what am I supposed to do? So,
right.
but I've got some interesting people lined up here in the next couple weeks, but yeah.
Harley, so you guys took off after it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, how long did it stay within view of you, and what were the physical attributes of how it fled from you?
I mean, when it leaned out and we started running, it just turned, and it was like it stayed behind the tree whenever it took off. Like it just turned and went. But right up as we got to the tree where it was at, there was a moss, and you could see the indentation of the toes from where it stepped, and it went on up the mountain.
But I guess what I'm getting at is like the physicality of how it moved as it was running away from you. Did it run like a track star? Did it run like a linebacker? Were you able to see it or anything? Or
I wasn't able to see it because the tree, it was a pretty big tree that it was behind. It just turned and it went. I mean, we couldn't really tell. I mean, those laurel trees, I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, they're green year round here in East Tennessee. And I mean, that cover is so thick you couldn't really tell. But I mean, the strangest thing was this thing did not make a sound.
See, that's something that's so perplexing to me, because you have people who talk about these things coming into the area that they're in, and they literally feel the ground shake and the thunderous footsteps of this massive beast. And then you have people like you that are talking about they left an area post haste and there was no sound. So which is it?
Yeah.
Well, that's where the rabbit hole comes in. And I'm pretty firm on what I think they are. All the people that say they're an ape, well, I think that's just a big load of bullshit. Because there's so many different reports of UFO activity, orb activity around them. And I've discussed this with Brandon. I believe that these beings are remnants of the Nephilim. I mean, some way, somehow, those beings survived, and I believe that Bigfoot, Dogman, all that phenomenon, some way, somehow ties into these creatures. The way I tested this, I made a cross and I put it on one of their tree structures. Now, I went in a week later and they tore the cross apart. And I mean, yeah, they probably could have smelled my scent and destroyed it, but what would have benefited them just to take it and do that? If it's, it was great. It made more questions than answers to me.
Didn't you recently just put out like some peanut butter somewhere?
Yes, I did, and I put that out on December 14th, the day that I had my second sighting, and last week the jar of peanut butter was outside.
It was what?
It was outside of my house. The place that I go is about 20, 25 minutes away from my house, and it's the exact same jar of peanut butter.
Did it still have peanut butter in it, or had it been?
Nothing left. It was just cleaned out. Yeah.
That's what makes me kind of question in my head a little bit is like, if you're 25 minutes away, how would this thing know where to bring it back to you?
Well, that's where the rabbit hole comes in. I mean, I've had people tell me that I've been marked by these things. I don't know.
See, that's an interesting aspect, because my second and third episode is a two-parter, and the dad had a public hunting land that was way back in a swamp, mile and a half off nobody would go back there, but he and his brother and his dad and his cousin, they had really good success there. So, they would go there through the summer, and they'd, weed out the cutting lane or the firing lanes and all this stuff. And he had an experience where one walked out at about 5:45 in the morning. It wasn't quite daylight yet, but it wasn't real dark. He had an experience. He had some weird experiences during the summer while they were cleaning up that area and prepping the area for the hunt. Probably a 35 to 40 minute drive from their homestead. And shortly after that, they begin to have experiences on their property. Not only him, but two of his daughters had seen one as well on their property. And, what is the component there? Because the one daughter, and I actually did this interview in their home in front of them. We sat at their dining room table, and, so I got to see them in person, eye to eye, sitting across the table from them. I got to see the wife, who wasn't part of the show, but I got to see her sit there and sit through 2 hours of our conversation and never rolled her eyes or was like, God, I can't believe they're talking about this stupid shit again. There was nothing about that gave me any pause. So the one daughter, she started having dreams about these things. And in the dreams, they were saying, because they had done some things at this public land, the hunting property, where they were taking down things that sounded like they would appear to be a structure. And they were using that wood to help line the edge of the swamp so that they could walk on it and not sink down into the swamp. Then the daughter starts having dreams about these things and says she's being shown like nasty stuff that these things were doing to her parents, to her family. And she took it as, you came into our place and you messed with our shit. And now we're letting you know that we know where you're at. And, she was 20 years old. And this is a somewhat religious family. I knew the guy from working in a school with him. My kids went to school with both of the daughters. They were just normal people. But for her to have that insight, I was floored by that, because, that opens up a new component to it. How are they, I've heard people have mind speak with these things, and, but she was having images in her head. Could it have been nightmares? Yeah. Okay. Could have been nightmares. But it was a very strange part of that. And it never really left me. It makes me wonder, like you, 25 minutes away, and yet they found you. And, 35 minutes by car, 35 or 40 minutes by car, completely different county. And how did they track them down?
That's the mystery behind it. There is a paranormal connection to the Bigfoot. I mean, people that deny that, I think they're selfish, but I'm just basing off of what I've been out in the field and figuring out for myself.
Yeah.
And I'm not a know-it-all or nothing. I'm an amateur. You know, I'm 2 months into doing this, and I'm getting close. To what, I don't know, but it's going to be crazy, I'm sure.
Chucky
Well, guys,
said something that I know some people have been leaning more towards this. A lot of things are all connected.
mm-hmm. And I am becoming more and more of a believer in that.
I have been too.
You know, I mean, I've talked about this on the show a couple of times. It's like, all right, you go in to investigate a haunted house, right? You go in there, and what's something that is that happens? People hear knocks on the wall, right? Or knocks on a door or something like that. What do people hear in the woods when they're around Bigfoot? They hear knocks, right? What if that knock? Because to my knowledge, there's never been anybody who's photographed or videotaped a Bigfoot with a big ass limb in his hand smacking a tree, right?
Yep.
It's a logical assumption to think that it sounds like a tree knock. So, you know, but what if that's not it? What if that is a peripheral effect of them coming into our perception? What if that is just a component of how they present themselves as they enter our reality? Because you have ghosts doing it, you have Bigfoot doing it, you have orbs show up when people are investigating spirits and supernatural phenomenon. You have orbs in the woods. You have orbs associated with UFOs. You know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's really interchangeable with all this stuff, and it leads me to really believe that a lot of this is interconnected.
That's why I kind of lean towards, I don't let everyone, all of a sudden I've noticed a jump to the interdimensional type shit. And I'm not going to say I disagree with it, because I do kind of lean that way, but it's like something else from a different realm is entering ours. And are they traveling through energies? Is that what the orbs are? Like you said, everything is connected. Like Bigfoot has orbs, Ghost has orbs, UFOs have orbs. You hear these noises, you hear the knocks. People say they hear metal, like almost like a door grinding. Mm-hmm. I think that was like the tearing of the fabric of space or time or whatever you want to call it. Like they hear these noises, and then that's when the weird shit happens. So it's like, is it all connected? It starts to look more and more that way. But when you start to go that way, a lot of people say, oh, you're in the woo. And everyone, you're either on the woo side or you're not on the woo side. But I guess I lean woo.
People get offended when you start throwing the curveball at them.
No.
But I think electromagnetic fields have a lot to do with what's going on too.
I think it's vibrations, frequencies, all sorts. It all plays into everything. But, well, guys, been going on for a little over 2 hours. I think we're going to wrap this one up. I've got work in the morning. I'm sure you guys do as well.
Absolutely.
I want to say thank you to Eric for coming on here and talk with me. I'm going to
appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun.
Most of the crowd, I think, came over from your Uncomfortable Discord.
Yeah, it was good to see him.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys coming on here and checking it out. I do plan to do these once a month. The last Thursday of every month, I'm going to try and have a different podcast on here with me, and then have a guest or two. And then I want to have more live crowd interactions, but I noticed trying to do this, it's really hard to keep it paying attention to what the guest is saying and seeing all the comments. And there's a lot more to it than just normally just I let the guest speak and I'm just listening. I don't really pay attention to the comments, so I'm not used to the whole live stream aspect of it. But Harley, thanks for coming on and talking with me, talking with Eric.
Harley, I'd love a chance to talk to you at some point, my friend.
We can schedule that, my friend. We're glad to have you in my Facebook group as well, and you can share stuff from your channel on there if you would like.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. I appreciate it.
If you guys want to hang on a second, we're going to wrap this up, but I want Eric, just for when this gets released on Tinfoil Tales, if you want to let everyone know where they can find your podcast at.
Sure. I appreciate it, man. This has been a lot of fun. I'm Erick Szilagyi. I'm the host of Uncomfortable Podcast. You can find it on any of the major platforms. Best way to find me is search Uncomfortable followed by the name Erick, and then just look for this this logo. That'll be me. We just recently started doing YouTube as well, so I got a channel there where you can get pretty much the newer episodes are coming out in video form too. So we're going strong. I have no reason to stop. So
You want to let everyone know about your Bigfoots and Brews?
oh yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Bigfoot and Brews. It's a Bigfoot conference that I host in Dowagiac, Michigan, which is the home of the 1964 Dewey Lake monster sightings. It's going to be September 14th. It's going to be a 2-day event. I'm going to have the VIP dinner on the 13th, and then the event will be the day of on the 14th, and that's going to be held at Sister Lakes Brewing Company right there in Dowagiac, Michigan. It's about 30 minutes north of South Bend. Tickets are going to be available here by no later than the second week of March. Getting the final touches on everything. I've got Amy Boo from the Olympic Project and her project, the Zoo Book. She's going to be the lead speaker. I've got Scott Tompkins coming from Texas. He is the gentleman who designed the Bigfoot Mapping Project app that you can get on your phone or on your desktop. He's going to be doing his very first public speaking at that. I'm going to have naturalist from Salt Fork State Park, John Higginbottom. He's going to be speaking. I've got Shaitan Noir, who's going to be coming in and doing about a half-hour presentation about the Dewey Lake monster sightings from '64 at the very beginning. And then we're going to add a little bit of a paranormal component to it and have the Archbishop Christina Rake come in and talk about God and the paranormal. So it's going to be a full day. And man, I'm thrilled. This is the third year we're doing it. It's a lot of fun. It's a great venue, and just can't wait.
That's awesome.
So if anybody's interested in it, just follow Uncomfortable Podcast on Facebook or Instagram, both at on Uncomfortable Podcast 65. And information is that the information's all going to hit those outlets. So as soon
I'll
as
throw
it's
everything
live,
in the show notes for you too.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thanks to all the Uncomfortable community who turned up tonight, man. It was great to see you guys.
Yep. Appreciate you guys coming out, watching along. Harley, again, thanks for coming on here and talking with us.
Yes, sir. It wasn't no problem at all. I was glad to be here.
So if you guys are interested, make sure to like and subscribe. I will do this once a month, and make sure to check out Tinfoil Tales pretty much wherever you listen to podcasts at or here on YouTube. But thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.